And the topic of today is aligning open data, journalism, and conversational AI, which from the first impression, it's not the most sexy topic. Something that you might notice that many people have left, but I will try to convince you, at least for those who are watching and listening right now, why it's something very exciting. I want to start with this little graph. You see, probably all of you remember this, confirmed cases of COVID-19. And many people have seen this graph, and many life-altering decisions were made because of this graph. And I want to tell you two separate anecdotes concerning this graph, which really exemplifies the type of problem that we're facing, the challenges that we are facing, but also the opportunities. The first anecdote is during the 6 until 9 months since the start of COVID-19, colleagues of mine at VRT News, some of them had the task to update this graph every day. So to do this, they would go on the website of Conversational and manually copy paste the latest data into a spreadsheet. This was the way that they knew how to do it, and but there was a problem with it, because sometimes Conversational would retroactively update some of the numbers. Sometimes, and actually more systematically, the numbers tend to be wrong, because you just kind of update the latest number, and then the next day you would change it again, update it again, and then sometimes Conversational would retroactively update the numbers, and then it's always a bit not very precise. It looks kind of similar, but not very precise. So yes, a lot of manual labor. The second anecdote is that this is something I've heard from some friends of mine who are actively lobbying the government to publish more open data. I knew that in the beginning of the COVID crisis, many of these graphs and data were published in a PDF file. It was every morning there was a PDF file with the latest statistics and the graphs and stuff. They were already created. So when they asked the minister, like, hey, could you please publish it as open data? The answer was, hey, we already do it on PDF, so why would you need it as open data? Even though COVID-19 is not so long ago, I believe a lot has changed since then. I believe that Corona was really a big game changer when it comes to open data. And the first thing is, it was for the first time that many of the news organizations, they had the live dashboards and it was all linked automatically and updated automatically. That was something new. The second thing was also, for the first time, like live data from a certain disease was updated and uploaded as open data, as a CSV file every single day. That was also something new that I hadn't seen before. And so from the journalist point of view, we started looking at ways to automate this. And this is like a piece of code that I've written. It's not the most sophisticated code, but it did the job at that time to automatically scrape the data and then update the graph every single day. But I also see that more and more governments are publishing open data that we as journalists also start using. So COVID was really a game changer. But at the same time, it also did something in the behavior and expectation of the public. So until then, it was, every time we would publish some statistics, it was just a snapshot of that moment. And it was not updated. And there was not really the expectation of the people that it should be updated. But now, at least I have the feeling that people expect the most recent data now. They want to get the right and correct information exactly at this moment when they're searching for it. So this is the starting point. When I started asking the question, what if? What if not just the COVID data? What if we could create all these different types of graphs automatically, the statistical information that whenever someone would need it, we can immediately update it and give it to them. So internally at VRT News, we started thinking about like how can we, find an easy way to update graphs and always keep it updated. So Newsify is a tool that we've built and we're still building. It's kind of a search engine for government statistics, and it's always up to date. At least that's the point. And then you can immediately copy it. So let's see, here's a video. So you can look for some, for example, the inflation in the European Union, and you can click on it, and you can immediately copy an iframe that you will put in your article, and you can get the source. And this is a very fast way for journalists to publish the right data very fast. So we started, just going through all kinds of what type of data exists from the government, European, Belgian, Flemish, like where can we find them, and what is the quality of the data? What type of file do they publish? So we just started collecting all kinds of different data. But to give you an example, this is the Gemeente Stadsmonitor, which has 418 different indicators like labor, poverty, but all on municipality level. And you can, for your own town, you can find like what's the poverty rate and stuff like that. It's a very useful source. But then we encountered a problem, because VRT News is not just for Flanders, but we also make a lot of local journalism. So for our local journalists, it would be interesting to have graphs like this for whatever municipality they're from Beveren. Like they would maybe want to know exactly precisely what's the poverty rate in Beveren if they're doing some story about it. But the problem is that if we would make and automatically create like all possible types of graphs, then we come to a little bit of problem. So as I said, there are 418 different indicators, and there are 300 municipalities in Flanders. So if we would create a graph for all of them, we would have to make 125,400 graphs and publish it in Newsify, which would be, it could be possible, but it's not really manageable in the long run. So then I started asking the question, what if you could just, instead of generating all these graphs, what if you could just ask a question and get it. And my first question was, because that was like last December when ChatGPT came out, I asked myself the question, what if we could ask it to ChatGPT? And the result that I got was not really promising. And so I asked the question, can you show me the evolution of population growth in Belgium since 2010 in a table? And what I got, and actually every time I ask this question, I get different answers. And compared to the official statistics of Stadbel, so even if they say it's from Stadbel, the numbers are actually not correct. And sometimes we forget that, okay, we know that it's making a lot of fake news, but I think in the core of it, sometimes we forget that ChatGPT and all these different large language models, and we call them generative AI. Yeah, in the literal sense, they're generating some stuff that looks like it, but it's not quite it. So then the question, yeah, what if we could analyze data by using just simple natural language? Because one of the biggest problem for journalists is that not everybody is a data journalist. Not everybody knows how to code with Python, and also journalism is a very fast field. You have to be very fast. So then, yeah, most people don't even have the time for that. So there are not dedicated data teams and stuff like that. So what if you could make it a bit more easier for journalists? And this is really the starting point of Wobby. It's a startup that I co-founded, and I will show you what we are building. This is a prototype, but it can give you a clear example of what we're trying to do and where we're going forward. So let's go back to the same statistics. So you have the confirmed cases of COVID-19. And so that data set has not just for the total, but it also has different age groups and stuff, but you would want the total. But you also want the 7-day rolling averages, because otherwise the graph looks like it's like a seesaw, like it's a zigzag all the way, like as you can see here. So let's do that. So I'm here, I'm copying the CSV of Cienzano, and I put it in my tool. And let me just pause it here for a moment and explain to you what it exactly our tool Wobby is doing. So the first thing that we do is to create to generate an interpretation of the data. So here it says, this data contains information about the number of cases of a certain age group and sex in different provinces and regions in Belgium. So it knows, okay, this is about a number of cases, and it also recognized that it's from Belgium. And it then also creates an interpretation per column that it encountered. So its date is clear, the data type is date, and the description is date of the data. Province, name of the province. These are very simple, but also complex data sets. We've tried many different, that it's actually quite good at creating these interpretations of the data. Oh, and this appeared to be one of the main key issues that we had to solve to make it possible for an AI to analyze data. And so how it goes is, I'll continue. So then, yeah, you made all these different interpretation, and then you simply ask a question, calculate the total cases per date, create a new column with the 7 days rolling averages. So, and then you quickly get the data, and you can see it even in the bar chart. And we can see here the Python code that it generated. We can see that it's actually very accurate. I think this solution, or this, it gives a lot of opportunities, not just in journalism, but in a lot of different fields. It could be applicable. Any type of tabular data could be interpreted and also analyzed for all kinds of different industries and all kinds of different fields. So this is great. But then again, okay, I know my colleagues. So as you might have understood, I'm always placing myself in the shoes of my colleagues. So as I said, okay, they're not very tech savvy, so maybe we can make it easy for them, that they can just talk to their data instead of learning all this Python and different difficult stuff. But I also know, and then this is one of the main problems of data journalism, is that, like, okay, you need the data fast, but how do you find it? How can you find the right data to analyze, to answer a certain question or do some certain journalistic investigation? So then the question, what if we could search open data and analyze the data in the same environment? So this is also a prototype that we are building with Wobby. And at the moment, we've only connected it to the data of CBS, which is the Dutch Statistical Bureau, which has they have a very quite well API, and the metadata is quite good, that you can access it quite fast. So let's try this stereotype. So the stereotype is that women are very bad drivers, and it's a stereotype that has been going on for long. So let's say you would like to debunk it or even confirm it. Like, how would you do that? So we asked the question. This is our search open data module. So we search. Let's stop. Oh. We search. Let's try again. So car accidents by gender. So then we found this, those who died because of car accidents by gender. And then we can, we can see that it also interprets the data as this data contains information about traffic fatalities in the Netherlands, broken down by gender, age, mode of transportation, and year. And let me just remind you, this is not the metadata that they're getting from the website of CBS. This is the data, this is the metadata that the AI created by seeing the pattern within the data itself. So then we can ask the question, calculate per year the car accident fatalities by gender, and we selected persona auto, like personal cars, and we can see that it creates the correct Python codes. And then we can also see that it's actually men who are much more in car accidents. And so you could argue that men are bad drivers. Of course, this is just one small example. I mean, to really know if women or men are bad drivers, you have to do a bit more extensive research and data analysis. But this shows really the possibilities, like where we could go. I just kind of imagine that there could be a time that any question that you can ask, that you could get an accurate, reliable, and official source and official numbers that you like. It could be for any types of statistics. So we've seen that it's possible. So what's holding us back? And it really comes down to a couple of fundamental issues relating to the quality of our open data. Number one problem is that many data are just simply not accessible, and many data are they also have some kind of bad data formats. With that, what I mean is that sometimes I've experienced that the type of data that I was looking for, it exists, but not always in the most usable format. For example, in Belgium, if you are working with geographic data, then it will be in a format Lambert 74, while every data visualization tool that I'm using is in the format with VSG 84 or something like that. And this kind of like really tiny problems happen a lot, and it just sometimes it creates a bottleneck to work to solve something fast, or analyze data very fast. So this is one of the issues that we are seeing. We also see is bad metadata. As you've seen, as I've demonstrated, for an AI to understand or to analyze the data, it is very important that it can read good quality metadata, that it understands immediately what is the data that I'm seeing, and that it also can see what does the different columns mean, and what is the data type of these different columns, or just simple thing like how is the date column of the data formatted? Is it year, month, and day, or is it day, month, year? So simple things like that, it needs to understand for it to generate codes that can calculate these things. Also a lot of the data that I'm seeing, they're no API. They're just somewhere on the internet, an Excel sheet that you can download or something like that, or a CSV. But there is not a way, or at least, I mean, I know that there are some projects that are doing this, but so far I have seen that compared to the Dutch Statistic Bureau, the ones that I'm seeing is the API are not available, or at least very hard to use. Sometimes the data, they're just not very stable. You cannot rely that every time I fetch it, it will be there. And sometimes it's a very small thing, but some government organizations, every time they publish a data set, they tend to update the name. It would just add some kind of the number of the dates. So they think like, okay, this is the latest, and we will add the number. But by just doing that, they make it unstable, because if I wanted to keep updating, I would need the same URL that I can rely on. It will always be the same, which is not always the case. Another problem is that we have the problem of data silos, like especially in Belgium. You have the Belgian, the federal data, you have municipality data, you have Flemish data, and they don't always correspond. So you cannot always make an analysis on the Belgian level if the data is only available in the Flemish level, or vice versa. And these are things that are problematic to solve this issue. And This is something I've seen on the website of Stadtbell about the quality, like the different levels of open data, and the higher it goes, the better it gets. But I've seen that we are mostly struck on these three levels. So yes, government organizations and agencies, they still like to publish PDFs, and some of them would publish an Excel sheets, and sometimes it's actually almost always it's an already calculated pivot table. And if it gets better, then some agencies will also publish a CSV. But on the higher level, RDF or linked open data, that's something that we have barely seen. But it's not just a problem of the the governments, because as I said, I try to put myself in the shoes of my colleagues. So even if the quality would be so good and it would be linked open data in the highest quality, if the journalists and the people who would actually use it and analyze it don't know how to do it, then it's still something very niche that some expert people can use, but the general public won't. So I'd like to dream about the future, and that's why the presentation is called the aligning of open data journalism and conversational AI. As I have demonstrated, we have all the different ingredients technologically possible to make it possible that anyone can ask a question, a simple question, and would get the right official statistics and get the right answer. So we know that it's possible, and I think there is a discussion needed among us on how to make it possible. What are the different links? What are the weakest links, and how can we strengthen them? What can we do from the journalism side, which is from my side? What can we do from the government side, the data providers? What can they do? And yeah, we also have to answer the question, like all these large language models, the companies that are creating these large language models, what can they do to make this dream a reality? Now, I would like to just give a couple of ideas on it. Number one is from the government side. I think they really have to think about the quality of the open data that they are providing. So one of the things is to make it findable, to aggregate it, to collect it somewhere that anyone with an API call can get the right data in a quite fast way. In order to do that, yeah, we would need more collaboration on all different government levels, also on the European side. And I know that there are also projects going on, something like that, but the quality of the data is still often very bad. So how we could then improve the quality of the data? As I said, for an AI to understand, you would need the metadata of the data, that it should be quite good. But another thing is, you could use the generative AI, as I have demonstrated, to create these metadata. That will save a lot of time for government employees who would have to then manually fill in all these different metadata and have to, it's a tedious job that you can kind of save. So then if you would connect all these different types of solutions, so you're creating the metadata of the data with generative AI, and you can connect it and combine it in a common language, in a common structure, that no matter which language the data is formed, like for example, population or populacy or different language, that it could create um, a common data structure and data terms um, to combine it all together, that any data could be used in different languages and so on and so on. And in my opinion, if we can do all these different things, we can really have a future where everyone can just simply ask a question. It could be on the website of Stadtbel, or it can be with Wobby, the startup I'm building. And yeah, get accurate data very fast. Thank you very much. If you would like to get to know more, or if you would like to ask some questions, we can do that. Or if you want to send me a LinkedIn, I just posted a QR where you will find my LinkedIn page and Twitter, and also the websites of wobby.ai. Are there any questions? Perhaps also from the people in the room?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I've a little question. Is that a service you are providing, or is it also something that could, for instance, be installed on premises? Or is it typically a sort of as a service model you're thinking about?
Well, at this moment, it's really open for us. We could do that. We could do that on premise. We could think of ways to do that on premise. At this moment, we're just testing the capabilities and testing the limits of what it can do and what it can't do. And because the possibilities are so broad, and we're also looking at different industries, what type of data need they have. But I know the side from the journalist point, and I know the side a bit from the government open data providers point, and there could be an easier match in that. But more importantly, I think it's really finding collaborations of different sides to align and make it really possible. And as I've proven, as I've demonstrated, it's really not that hard if we can make the right connections, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if okay.
I'm gonna ask you one. The first one of the first examples you showed was with Chat GPT and showing the tables and how they were inaccurate in that they were just showing different numbers every time. Now that they've announced the plugins, and I imagine the government will eventually submit some plugins somewhere. Where does that leave you? You think? What do you see? I mean, I guess are you planning to build plugins moving forward, or are you going to try to compete against those, or where?
Actually, we were just yesterday we were talking about it, that it could be a good idea to build a plugin. But then, of course, you have to. I mean, I'm not skeptical about the how governments work, but I'm also a bit realistic about it. So if you would create a plugin, who's going to build the plugin? Is it the Flemish government? Is it the Belgian government? Is it the European government? I mean, if you would say that if government would build it, then it would become, yeah, then you would have to kind of install all types of different government statistical bureau plugins on GPT-3, on GPT to use it. So it would be better if it's, just like one source that you can rely. Okay, these are good open data providers. Like for mathematical things, they're relying on Wolfram Alpha. It's kind of logical that you would do that because they have an expertise in it. It is the ambition of us, of Wobby, to become something like that. That we know how to that we know where these open data are, and that we can collect it in a standardized way, and that we can offer it to the public in a standardized way, so that an AI can understand it. Because there are, I don't know if many of you are data people, but there are like some very small, tiny technical problems that just that becomes the weaker link. For example, we know that our AI model really likes to make a pivot table to calculate. They would use group by method or a pivot table method to create a calculation. So if we would ask what is the average of something, like they would create some kind of a pivot table. But for some reason, government statistical bureaus really like to separate different values. Like, for example, they would give the value of female drivers, male drivers, and then female and male drivers total. So if you can imagine, if you would just make a pivot table out of that, then the number would be the calculations would be wrong. It would be technically right, but it would be wrong because you would then double count those who are male and female at the same time. I mean, the total. So yeah, you would, I think I can imagine that you would need different types of data where the total is always the total of the cases or the people of whatever. And so you would have to understand exactly how the AI thinks about data. Because there's also the security reason. You would not want, I mean, for open data, it's something different, but you would not always want the AI to read all of your data, because that could be like, if it's a private company that could have sensitive information, you would not want OpenAI to use it as a training data and stuff like that. So these are like, a lot of different things that you have to take in consideration. But at the same time, it's really possible. I mean, 2 years ago, when I was struggling as a data journalist, I was always so frustrated and says, "Oh, this is impossible." But now with ChatGPT and all these different large language models that are coming up, I really can't see how it's how hard can it be? We just have to make the connections in a right way. Any other thoughts? Or if someone says, "Hey, if you think like I'm talking bullshit," you can say it as well. But in general, what a time to be alive, eh? So, thank you very much.